Okay, welcome to our Terrace Talk chat. It's a pleasure to have you all on here tonight. I'm delighted to welcome you to the second of our Terrace Talk chats. Just for anybody watching the video, I just wanted to say that we will be touching on a few topics which might trigger some feelings and some emotional responses. So please do take care of yourself and pause the video at any points, or maybe come back to the video if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed. So just to let everybody know, we will be touching on a few topics. So with me tonight on this chat, we have Paul, who's been a Forest supporter for 30 years and is now a board member of Nottingham Forest Supporters Trust, who recently won the FSA Lockdown Heroes Award for the championship for the work that they've done on mental health. We have Nick, who's a Norwich City fan. In his day job, he works in education and is a safeguarding lead and mental health champion in a secondary school. And then he's also he's a member of Proud Canaries, the LGBT supporters group for Norwich City, and he also is a member of Canaries Trust, who have set up a mental health group. And then last but not least, we have Geoff from Hull City Supporters Trust, who's a board member of the trust and has been on the National Council for the FSA. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you all on this call tonight. So firstly, I'm really interested to sort of hear how you came to have an interest in mental health, and whether or not there was something specific that sparks that interest. So Paul, if we come to you first.
Yeah, probably through life experiences, I think. When I was at university, I remember a student there took his own life in our halls of residence, and it was a massive shock to us, and a bit of a wake-up call to what mental health is and why it's so important. And over the years, I've known of another 2 or 3 people who similar things have happened to. So yeah, I just through life experiences, I've realised it's a massive issue, and things like this and help and support literally does save lives. And that's why I've sort of got involved in things, written about it, and done things through the Supporters Trust.
Thanks, Paul. And Geoff?
Yeah, well, I was jolted into this world of mental health awareness on the glorious 12th of August 2016. Whilst I was giving an interview which was played the following day on Soccer Saturday, it was Hull City played the then champions Leicester on the opening day of the Premier League season and beat them. My youngest of my 2 sons attempted suicide. I don't think the 2 were connected, but he'd clearly been suffering from anxiety and depression for a long time and hidden it. He survived, but sadly he's now got a pretty major hypoxic brain injury. So through that difficultly, if you can use that adjective, every day, and I was horrified. And part of my coping mechanism is to try and do something about it and try and end that stigma that 3/4 of suicides are men, and 12 men a day die every day. And I just find it amazing that, for example, I was doing a speed awareness course a few months ago, and there are more men die every year through their own hands than the total number of people killed on the roads every year, and how much is spent on road safety and how much is spent on mental health. And that's just wrong. So it coincided with me being chairman of Hull City Supporters Trust, and that gave me the opportunity to try and get the right sort of messages out using the trust and the fans, because let's face it, the demographic of football fans tend to be male and tend to be of an age range that seem to be suffering the most.
And Nick, have you got personal experience like the guys? Would you be able to just explain a little bit why you are interested in this topic?
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of myself, so in my day job, I'm an assistant head in a secondary school in Norfolk, and around kind of 5 or 6 years ago, we were seeing more and more young people present in schools with serious mental health issues. Yet we found it really difficult to find a lot of education, a lot of self-reflection, and worked with other organisations. So I've been working around mental health for that. I've become the SENCO, the special needs coordinator of our school, and try to get a good package of support together for our young people, but it's still not anywhere near enough, and the need is nowhere near being met yet, but we do all we can. So I think personally that's where I come from, and I think thinking of some of the things that Geoff just said, mental health needs much more of a focus, and it needs a parity with physical health, and we need to normalise and usualise talking about how we're feeling. So that's where it comes from for me. And in terms of the Canaries Trust, we want a different sort of football. We want a football that's safer and is more enjoyable for everybody, and that involving women and LGBT people, and also crucially being a place that's safe. And I think lockdown has made us all reflect that how much football means to us and how much we miss football, and I think that is a good segue into talking about mental health.
So I think just touching on that, Terrace Talk, the campaign was set up and it was pushed by and is a fan-led campaign about mental health, and it was pushed by the EFL and various different supporters groups that were already doing great work locally. So one of the aspects of Terrace Talk is to promote local work. So really in this video, I know we're all hoping to achieve sharing a how-to kind of element of how to set up mental health projects and what the best steps are and what options there might be for people. But you've all touched on, really personal kind of stories about what's pushed you to sort of help your local supporters group. So just in terms of that and being a supporter, how have you all found your mental health during this lockdown period and, without football? So, Geoff, we'll come to you first. How has it been not going to the stadium and not having match day rituals, for example?
Yeah, for me personally, it's not been too bad, simply because I'm in a self-imposed exile from my home stadium, but I massively miss my away days that I used to enjoy. And I think you touched on the perfect scenario there, or explanation, Debs, because it is a match day ritual. People go to the same pubs, they meet the same people, they meet the same friends who they're probably surrounded by, as I was when I had a season ticket, and you form friendships around that whole match day experience. And since November last year, that's gone. Now, for anyone that lives on their own, perhaps they've been furloughed, they've lost a huge part of their social life, and that has undoubtedly had serious effects on some people's mental health, no question. So I've been fortunate personally is that I haven't been in the habit of going to home games regularly, but I massively miss my away days.
Yeah. And Nick, how about you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's something communal and something just so exciting and thrilling about seeing live football that I follow and other things can never ever give us. But I was kind of thinking about whether it was better over this period if your team's done really well or done badly. If they've done well, as fortunately Norwich have, we've missed, seeing a fantastic season, and there's a sadness in that. And we've missed seeing possibly Ollie Skip play in midfield if he goes back to Spurs in the summer. But also, if you've had a bad season, is it harder to deal with that if you've not been with other fans? Because generally, by the time you meet up with the other fans and have a drink and then move on, you feel a bit better about the game and your team. So yeah, I think it's been different, but definitely a loss for everybody in some way.
And Paul, would you agree with the similar sentiments about the loss and and it being very unusual?
Yeah, so a few years ago, I actually wrote an article about mental health and football, and I was fortunate enough to speak to a couple of academics at the University of Nottingham, and one of them had actually done a PhD on mental health and football, and he talked about a lot of the things that Nick and Geoff talked about. The consistency that football gives you, that routine, connections across different generations, the conversations that you have, the friendships, and also like a cathartic release as well, for some people who might be struggling. And they definitely said that football was hugely positive to mental health, despite some other challenges around sort of more toxic masculinity and things like that sometimes are part of it, but overall hugely positive. And then when lockdown came, I thought, oh, hang on a minute, all of those things are going to be lost, so it's going to be really difficult. And yeah, I think everybody has missed it, particularly those who go to games. But even though Forest haven't had a good season, sadly, I have kind of got used to it. I've got used to watching it on a stream. I still care about the results, still feel down about results and things like that. But yeah, it's obviously a big loss, particularly for those who attend matches, I think.
I mean, and I suppose now we're sort of getting to a point too where the return to stadium might cause anxiety. It might cause a certain level of worry. So do any of you have any feeling from your own memberships or supporters that you've been talking to about their feelings on returning and how that might look? Just offer it out. Does anybody, Geoff, you're nodding? Are you?
Yeah, we have. I mean, we've certainly. There's been some issues around disabled fans who perhaps feel more vulnerable, and I've seen on the FSA chats certainly concerns about disabled fans who have season passes where they're probably short in number, and worries that the club won't retain their passes if they don't feel safe to attend or can't attend. Lockdowns affected people. I mean, the noisy group of fans can't wait to get. I mean, I've been chat now after last night's performance. Hull City may get promoted on Saturday, away game at Lincoln, and there's fans saying, well, let's go to Lincoln, let's have a socially distanced celebration. Now, apart from the fact it's a bit early, and I don't know that might happen, people are really keen to get back, but I don't think they fully appreciate the effect that will have on other supporters, particularly perhaps the elderly, those that have been shielding, people that are feeling more vulnerable. And it is a huge issue, I think, just organising the return, because that in itself is going to cause stress. If the restrictions are that some people can attend, it's got to be socially distanced, attendances are restricted, so some fans can, some fans can't. That in itself is going to cause tension.
And Nick, did you have any points to pick up on that?
Yeah, very similar. And I think kind of working in a school, I've noticed a few interesting connected things, so for me, being around a big group of people is something that I'm kind of quite used to, but I've really noticed how much everybody is just in a different place with returning back over COVID. And you have some students and some staff who are just like, right, yeah, let's just crack on with it. And then you have some people that are like, I do not feel comfortable with this tool, and they need to do slightly different jobs and have slightly different levels of support. And so I think it will be the same in football. And so I would just echo what Geoff has said and say that I think the thing that we can probably most ask for our clubs to do is to show flexibility. And we don't want anyone to miss out in the way that Geoff said because they don't feel quite ready yet. So I think it's really important that there's flexibility, and that as fans, we appreciate not everybody is in the same place.
And
sorry, just one thing to add as well. We interviewed a member who'd lost his brother. He had a disability, and he unfortunately died of COVID. And for him, returning is going to be different because he won't be going with his brother. They won't be doing the journey together, and so the people are coming at it from all different angles, including grief and things like that.
I think as well, it's a really important point that you say, Paul, too, that if you've lost somebody that you have gone to the game with, does that sort of turn you off a little bit from going? Because not only are you dealing with, coming out of lockdown and the anxieties, but then also that hole in your life is, so big. So yeah, definitely a really important point. This is where I think, though, the local projects, particularly that your groups are doing, will be fundamental in easing people back in and returning them back into stadiums. And as you said, Nick, making sure that the clubs understand to sort of look from everybody's perspective. So just wanted to delve a little bit into the different projects that each of your trusts have done. So Paul, can we start with you? Could you just explain a little bit about what you've done as a group on this topic?
Yeah, so Nottingham Forest already kind of had a programme through their community trust, and it was called It's Tricky to Talk, and so that had already kind of been launched. So we didn't need to just come up with something from scratch. So I met the lead there, called Claire, who was leading the programme, and we did some interviews with her about lockdown, the loss of football, and all those things that we've just discussed. Interviewed fans who'd got something out of the programme. Interviewed another supporter that I mentioned who'd lost his brother. But it kind of culminated in a mental health awareness course that we offered to our members. It was about a 3-hour course run by Mental Health England, and the same lead at Forest ran the course. So it had that kind of football feel to it, and it was really great to have members joining. Some of our board did as well, and have that course, and we all learnt a lot from it, really. And it just showed that football is a way of engaging people who perhaps otherwise wouldn't have thought of doing a course like that, or thought about how losing football had affected their mental health. So yeah, we've done quite a lot, and it was really a case of linking in really with what already was there.
And I love that sort of an idea, but in a different prism. So it's just presented slightly differently and then engages people. It's brilliant. And Geoff, what about you guys?
Yeah, well, ever since Hull City Supporters Trust were relaunched in 2015, we had quite a lot of legacy money left over from the Tigers Co-op that they'd raised. So rather than just be accused by non-member fans of merging with the Tigers Co-op to grab £30,000 or so, we made quite significant charitable donations to quite a number of charities locally, and some linked to football. Teenage Cancer Trust, for example, was another one that was the club's nominated charity at the time. So we had that legacy already within the trust. Because my experience personally, I was keen to try and get a message out. And about 18 months ago, we started, we formed a link with a retro shirt company called World Retro. And we produced what we believe is a beautiful, iconic tiger stripe football shirt, 92-93 season. For most other fans, it's abhorrent and awful, but we're funny folk in Hull, and we've sold probably 250 or so of those shirts, and we get a cash payment back for each shirt sold. So we've made some quite substantial donations to mental health related or mind health related charities, Mind Hull in East Yorkshire, the Dementia Friends of East Yorkshire, and a local small charity that just run chat groups for men and women as sort of a first step, called Mind Health. They've all received donations of £600 plus each. We've also worked for a couple of years with Emmaus Hull, the homeless charity. So again, that's very much linked into mental health. And more recently, I mean, that's been an ongoing program. We've got a number of these retro shirts now, and World Retro will help organisations in fundraising. And if anybody wants details, then contact me through the FSA or directly through the Supporters Trust, because we can put them in touch with them. And they're a brilliant company to work with. They're very sort of service-minded, and it's a great way of raising funds. We've received over £3,000 that we've donated to charities in the last 18 months through that specific initiative. More recently, we've got our former top striker, Chris Chilton, who's now in a home suffering, as many footballers of the 60s and 70s have been doing, with dementia and Alzheimer's. And we've been raising, as a number of Hull City organisations have this season, and also the club. I mean, fans have literally raised £40,000 in a matter of a few weeks for the Chris Chilton appeal, and so we've used the shirt retro, and we've run auctions as well, and made donations to that particular appeal. So there's thousands we've managed to raise through various ways, and we've been more than happy to talk with the supporters trusts or organisations that are looking how to do something on the ground. The first thing you can do, without a doubt, is contact your local Mind branch. I was in the EFL supporter dialogue meeting representing championship clubs a couple of years ago when the EFL announced their new partnership with Mind, which I found very interesting because of my own experiences. And the first thing I did is set up a meeting with Mind Hull and East Yorkshire, and we've kept that relationship going. We're just about to launch an initiative which is specifically badged as Terrace Talk here. We're nearly running out of season, but for all the reasons we've discussed, I think it's important to do something. And in effect, we will just publicise, along with our, hopefully, the Tigers Trust, which is our community group, that there is a helpline available 24/7, and effectively, from a little bit of publicity on social media and the like, anyone that's struggling can pick up the phone and speak to the Mind helpline and get help straight away that way. So,
amazing. I mean, we will definitely be coming to the nuts and bolts elements of these projects in a minute. And Geoff, you were fundamental in linking me with Jem Roten from Seed, who was on our first panel discussion for Terrace Talk. So you've been an advocate and a supporter of Seed, the eating disorder charity that Gemma runs. So, you know, it's great work being done in Hull. Nick, if I can just move on to you, if you could just explain your project, that would be amazing.
Yeah, so our project can simply be put to trying to get people to talk about mental health. We've talked a little bit already about the kind of toxic culture there can be, the fact that football obviously attracts lots of men, and we want to do more to encourage men to talk about their mental health. So it's a great avenue. So we've started up building a good social media presence. So we have a Canaries Mental Health Trust Twitter page, and we post every day, and we have a little team of people that run that, and we just put some top tips. We signpost people to organisations doing great work, and we just try and keep that conversation going, which is very similar to the work that I do in school. And we've got a good team of people, like I say, and we share it, otherwise we'd run out of ideas. We've also kind of augmented that by putting on a live forum that we did online, and that was really popular, and we got some people that are closely associated with the club, and again, people that represent different organisations. And that was really interesting, and it really taught me a lot of different things, you know, things that the players find particularly stressful, for instance, you know, looking at injuries and when contracts run up, and it was really fascinating. And then recently we've also started to come up with mental health minis, and we released our first one just over a week ago with Danny Mills from the Dulwich Hamlet player, and they are just short films like this that are just getting people talking, and again showcasing people that are doing great work. So we're about getting the conversation going and amplifying the good work that others are doing.
So let me pick up on something you've said. When somebody listening to this video might go, oh crikey, he's got a whole team of people supporting him. So what we want to just look at is the nuts and bolts of these projects. So when you say team, you had your idea, you sort of suggested it's a group, agreed it as a group. What things did you need to have in place or put in place in order to start to run? And what does team mean? Does it mean 100 people, or how many people are involved?
No, it means about 3 or 4 people. But we bring people in when we have events. So, like I say, I'm used to kind of doing little memes about mental health, really kind of small little things that I share with the young people at school. So that idea of a regular short message is something I feel quite comfortable at doing. And I regularly, through my safeguarding work, signpost to agencies. So we've got some other people that have expertise and have lived experience with mental health as well. And what I think has also been really important with us, because one thing that I couldn't do is to put together a video like this, and I couldn't, get all the guests ready for a big live event. And so we have within Canaries Trust somebody who's really great at putting together the videos from all of the different bits of footage, and we have people that helped us with the live event to make that a really big success. So yeah, that's kind of what the team looks like, 4 or 5 people, but having a good share of skills is really important, I think.
And the event was brilliant. I was watching that, and it was incredible, some of the things that you learn, particularly about contracts and the like. So, and then Paul, if we come to you, what sort of, how did you set up your training, and what did you kind of need to have in place or put in place?
Yeah, I think the root of it really is getting those relationships in place. So we had a couple of calls with Claire to sort of introduce ourselves, and we start, and you develop that trust. You do a couple of smaller things together, like interviews and written articles and that kind of thing, and develop it from there. And it really just grew organically, in that she said she was able to offer this course, and I thought, well, rather than just being kind of broadcast mode to members, how could we actually do something with them and get people in collaboratively? So we were able to offer a limited number of places on this course, and advertised it out there. I really didn't know what the take-up was going to be. I didn't know whether we would be able to go ahead or not, but we certainly had enough to have a really good session, and everyone really enjoyed it. And we also had another supporters trust join as a guest. I think it was Cambridge United as well, to take into the work that they did. So it's just really about being open and looking for ways to get everyone in a room, and everyone was talking quite openly about their experiences and their thoughts, and that, I just found it really amazing that we've been able to do that, and do that for members, and that was the key thing.
I think that is a key thing as well, because sometimes, anybody watching this video, if you as a group are stuck, as a committee or a trust board are stuck, it can be helpful to go to your members and make sure that they're included in these things, and get them to direct where you might go and give you ideas. So it's such an important point, and include them, member organisations. Is there anything else that you think, in terms of the project that you did, any other important kind of like nuts and bolts stuff? And you've obviously got charity partners that you were dealing with, and the financial aspect of the fundraising. So is there any other things that you would sort of add on to what Paul and Nick have said?
No, I think the important thing is to have someone that's committed to want to do it. In our case, through the trust, I tend to take the lead on now the community stuff and some of the mental health work, but it's very much a team effort, in that the board will agree when an idea comes in, whether it's something we can do or it's something we perhaps leave. World Retro approached us through our former secretary, Rich Mathers, a couple of years ago, and we then looked at it. They attended and gave us a presentation at a board meeting, and then we didn't do much with it for a while, but then the idea came up that with the tiger stripe shirt, when they were giving us examples of the shirt that they'd mocked up, there were the league triangle on one sleeve, and there was the sole advertising had the club for the other sleeve. So we finished it with 2 black short sleeves. And then I came up with the idea, well, why don't we sell those and try and raise money? And in the end, we just got the logos of the two charities, and we put those on the 2 sleeves free of charge, just to help try and raise awareness. So there are 250 odd mocked up tiger stripe shirts going around, and people have got Blokes United Mind Health on one sleeve and dementia friendly East Yorkshire on the other. So every time they wear the shirt, they're advertising that organisation free and for charge. So the one thing I did do was get in touch with the then shirt sponsor, Bonus Electric in Hull, and Sean Bonus there said, yeah, not a problem, because I didn't want to start hitting copyright issues. So
no.
their company have also got free advertising on the front of the shirt, but that actually makes it look a bit more authentic. So the one thing we had to steer clear of is keeping the club logo on the shirts, because we didn't get permission from the club to use the historic logos. So we just put the Supporters Trust logo on, which has caused some consternation, but at least it's badging and advertising the trust as well.
And a really important point, you know, certain projects would require permissions, and you do want to try and work collaboratively where possible, right? So that's a really important point. You mentioned something about you need a committed person. So I just wanted to kind of cover skill sets. So if someone is sat in watching this video and is in a supporters trust or group and goes, crikey, I just don't think I have the skill set. What other skills do you think you need? Commitment is one, Geoff, but Paul, is there any other skills that you think, oh, that would be really handy to have in order to push through a mental health project?
Yeah, well, one of the byproducts of lockdown is of course the embrace of digital technology, Zoom, where I think we all sort of saw events as face to face, but now we have to use Zoom, and that actually opens up real possibilities, I think. So if you can get digital skills on board to hold virtual sessions, there actually might be an opportunity coming out of COVID to engage people in mental health and other related topics and groups and things like that, and get them together virtually, when perhaps in the past people wouldn't have really been up for that. Now they're a lot more used to it. So yeah, I think now digital skills are really, really important for supporters groups, and that should help bring board and members and supporters together a lot more easier.
And increasing a visibility sort of element to that, especially online. Nick, is there anything else that you would add to Geoff and Paul's comments?
I'd certainly echo the comment about having people with good tech skills, and also just reflecting on your comment about everything being kind of nicely knitted together and working together. It's really important to have people that have got good contacts and good standing within the club, because it does make a difference if you can get some really good guests on the show, and you can get some former players and hopefully even get some current players to kind of talk about these issues, and also making sure that the people that you kind of feature are diverse, that you involve women, you involve people from different backgrounds, people with disabilities, so that people can see that these kind of activities are for absolutely everybody.
Excellent. Brilliant. And so if we just think about top tips, any top tips that you might have as individuals in terms of the work that you've been doing, Paul, is there any that spring to mind for you, top tips for people watching this?
Yeah, I would definitely say have a look at what's already there, and who you can partner with, because it is a specialist area, mental health, and you know, you need skills and experience, because you don't know what you're going to come into contact with. And I felt a lot more secure partnering with an expert, a mental health trainer, and the community trust itself, that I know is going to be on point. And for example, the training that we offer is going to be of value. But I think the other thing is to realise the opportunity that football offers to reach different people, because there's a lot of people who don't do any counselling or therapy, wouldn't attend a session outside, in the outside world, but football is different. They're much more secure. They're used to going to the ground and things like that, and they feel secure around their club. So you've got a great opportunity there to reach people who perhaps otherwise wouldn't reach out for help, and that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. And Geoff, any sort of top tips from you?
Yeah, I'd echo that, particularly that connection with football and sport. As I said right at the start, the demographic of the people who suffer the most and sadly die through suicide, 3/4 are men. And you only have to look at the grounds. There's probably a higher percentage than that of men that attend football. That's not right. I think it should be more attractive to families and women, and as Nick mentioned, you know, all groups. But again, absolutely none of us are experts. Nick's employed and has mental health awareness as part of his job role. I certainly aren't qualified in anything, but that doesn't stop you having a go, providing you know that you're not qualified and you are signposting people. And the big message for this, Terry's talk and the stuff we've done at Hull City Supporters Trust, is just trying to end the stigma, try and make it okay not to feel okay, and get that message across. It's good to talk. There's strap lines, but it's so important, because what I've found in the last 4 years or so while I've been doing this, and I've helped host a radio show about it, and I was a trustee with one of the local charities myself, and that was linked into men playing football, is men think they're strong enough to get over whatever the problems are, and they don't talk and won't talk. They you know, the head of the household, they think it's a weakness to admit there's something wrong. And until that changes, nothing's going to change.
No, such important points. You know, such important points, and also in terms of just thinking, you know, if you do try and do activity in this area, not to take the weight of everything on your shoulders to get help, to signpost, because you know you've got to take care of yourself and others. You know, and that taking care of you know, you can't really take care of anybody else unless you actually feel well and healthy yourself. So it's, you know, not to anybody, for anybody watching this, just to keep that in mind, for sure. So Nick, is there any other points, you know, top tips for setting up a mental health project that you'd sort of say to people?
Yeah, even though it's been said by everybody, including you, just to emphasise, don't try and do too much. And I see this at school. Teachers want to help every kid, and actually you can't. You know, there are so many societal issues around mental health and issues with funding that we haven't got time to go into. But, you know, if we can just move things forward a little bit and start a conversation, we're doing a great job. But just to end on something positive, you know, I think there's a tremendous opportunity right now. So we've already mentioned the possibilities with, you know, accessing people online because of the pandemic, but also just the moment we are of football, of what's happened recently, even with the Super League and everything that's happening with Black Lives Matter. There is an opportunity for change in the game. We want a really different type of football that keeps all of the great stuff that we love, but actually makes it more open to people and beats that stigma, as Geoff was saying. So I do think this is a moment for change in sport, and I think that we should really be trying to drive that forward.
Definitely. I'm wondering, I have one sort of final question for you all, but one thing that kind of strikes me, and speaking to you and knowing about your projects personally, and sort of witnessing them grow and develop, is whether or not we encourage people to plan in breaks. So if you are running a mental health project, do you make sure that you put in a break or a period of time where you say, oh, hey, like, we're taking care of ourselves, we're looking after our well-being, we'll be back? Or is it better to have a more steady, consistent approach? So that sort of comment I'd appreciate your thoughts on, and it sort of ties into the last question I want to ask, which is, what have you learned as an individual and as a group of volunteers? What do you feel that you've learned from the different projects? So if we go to Geoff first, any comments on, should you plan in a bit of a break, or should you try and be a bit more consistent? And is it about sharing the workload? And what have you learned?
I would agree with Nick's comment at the end, is that you can't do everything. You've got to accept that not everyone's going to listen. But I'd also say, don't persuade yourself not to have a go just because you think it's too big or you're not experienced enough. If you're passionate enough, there are people out there that will help you help others. And pick the phone up to Mind to start with and just see how you can help. They are linked to the EFL as the charity partner. The logo's on the back of every player's shirt. So just ask them, what can they do? And then mention Terry's talk, mention the Football Supporters Association, and if you don't know, give me a ring. I'll try and help. One of Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust's directors gave me a call a month or so ago because they were quite interested to try and look at ways and just what had to be done, like we're doing tonight with this. with this video. There are plenty of people in this movement that will help you if you're not sure.
Definitely. And Paul, any sort of thoughts on kind of planning a break, not planning a break, and sort of what you've learned so far from the projects that you've done?
Yeah, I think what I've learned right from the start, so I'm thinking right back to when I first did the article on it, I wasn't actually sure whether football was good for mental health when at the start. The idea was to find out, and through doing that article and then through all of our projects, I've found that it absolutely is very, very important for people's mental health. It's a great route to recovering from depression or just general well-being, and that's really important. I think when it comes to not doing too much and perhaps taking a break, you've got to see everything that you're doing can help mental health, whether it is a specific project or not. So, for example, we're going to be doing the My City, My Shirt initiative and photographing supporters around Nottingham and around the city ground, kind of celebrating, fingers crossed, coming back to the stadium and watching matches in person and celebrating diversity. And while that's not a mental health project, I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of that and see those positive things that we've talked about: identity, connection, and all of that kind of thing. So I think everything that we do as supporters trusts have that link with positive mental health, because football is good for people. Whether you're winning or losing, it is a positive. So I think you have to see everything that you're doing is contributing to good mental health.
I love that. Definitely. And always reminding yourself of that. And this, just impacting one person is amazing. So I think actually, Nick, it was on your mini series that Danny said about football, didn't he? And about being a player and losing a game, and then it being kind of like, it's heavy on my heart and in my head, and but then the elation, the kind of like greatness of being on the pitch and playing and training, that kind of contrast. It was really interesting from a player perspective, actually, that kind of what he was chatting about with you guys. Could you do you have any thoughts in terms of sharing the workload or and anything that you've learned so far in this journey?
Yeah, I think it's the mindset thing, isn't it? And going back to the last question of not trying to do too much, because I think if you feel that if I'm not there, we've all had it, I'm sure, whether it's at work or in our social life, if I'm not there, it's all going to fall apart. I think if you're feeling like that, it's probably a sign that things are unhealthy, and we don't want what we create as a result of this to be something that puts that amount of pressure on us. And one of the top tips that you always are going to give is, take a break and speak when you're not feeling great. So it's important we live by our own words, isn't it? On the break, not break. I don't think the two are mutually exclusive, to be honest. I think we should try to come up with something that's manageable. If I had to do the tweets every day, I'd probably get sick of it and need a break. But because I've got a team, I don't need to. But also self-preservation is so important. And the number one thing I've learned is definitely that there is a real mood to do something about mental health, and that people really want to do something. And I've come up against very little resistance, and ex-players want to talk about it, the club want to help you, the supporters engage with it. So I think we're knocking at an open door. That's what I've learned, I think, most.
So I think that's brilliant points again, and thanks to all three of you for being so open and honest about your experiences and your kind of like how you set up your projects. I mean, I think from an FSA perspective, we definitely are trying to offer more support to groups and connect groups, and this is one of the reasons for the Terrace Talk chats, is to sort of just inspire and offer a way of doing a project, or just sparking a thought in somebody. And I would urge anybody that's watching this to go and talk to their network manager. So there's great work being done in the Premier League. Geoff, you've just mentioned Spurs. There's great work being done in the women's game, where they're doing lots of watch-alongs and other sort of like charity fundraising things, and the national game and community-owned clubs and Fans for Diversity. So there's all sorts of stuff going on, and there's loads of people just within our networks that are willing to support, help and guide. So I would urge anybody that's watching this to please talk to your network manager. Guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Terrace Talk chat with you has been an absolute pleasure. So I really do appreciate everything, all the honesty that you've given, and kind of spending the time with me tonight to chat things through and chat your projects through. So thank you once again for joining us, and we will see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.